The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, back here with Sam as always. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing good as always. Well, good as most of the time. And can I just say, because I am not alone today, that our guest today for this podcast, this June 21st podcast, is it fair to say, Mike, that he was our number one priority of the offseason? Bringing him back on, freshly signed to a 4-year deal for $0 of pod appearances. Kellan Olson, how are you doing?
What's up, man? Doing really well. It's funny, you guys, I think Mike DM'd me 2 days ago, and we were recording this like 2 hours after the Jordan Goodwin news, and obviously the day after the Gillespie news, so the timing here was awesome. I was just ready to talk about Baba Miller and everyone and all those guys for an hour and a half, but we're going to get into a lot more, I assume.
Yeah, we were gifted sort of surprise content to talk about. Although I think we expected this was coming. You know, Gambo was very adamant about the Suns' priorities in this offseason. But yesterday was the Collin Gillespie news, and let's start there, and then we'll jump into Jordan Goodwin next. But Collin Gillespie, this is the tweet from Shams Charania. Free agent guard Collin Gillespie intends to sign a 4-year, $48 million deal to return to the Phoenix Suns, sources tell ESPN. And then he went on to do a little agent work about Gillespie. 4 years, $48 million, so an average of $12 million per year. The deal starts just under $11 million in the first year. This is after, I don't know how much you guys talked about it on Empire of the Suns or how much you wrote about Collin's free agency, but Sam and I went back and forth a little bit about where the line was where you started to get a little bit uncomfortable with how much Collin Gillespie was making. And I personally put that at just $10 million or over. Once you start getting over $10 million, I start to get a little bit worried. But then we heard a little bit, guys around the league talking about the potential Collin Gillespie deal, and they were throwing around numbers all the way up to $15 million a year. And so I do feel like hearing about a $48 million deal that starts around 10.7 or whatever it's going to be actually settled in a place where I started to feel a little comfortable with the amount that Collin Gillespie's making. But Kellan, what is your first reaction to this contract?
It's hard always because the cap is going up, and it feels like every 3 years someone is telling me that the cap is going to explode in 3 years. So that's like a way to evaluate contracts in a certain way. But Collin is like a classic, to your point. If we're thinking about this like 5-6 years ago, he's right around 6, 7, 8 million, something like that, perhaps. But with the cap the way that it is right now and his importance to the team, his role on the team, what he uniquely does on the team, I would have been comfortable even going above like 14 to 15, knowing that it was not above, but right around 14 to 15, knowing that it was like a slight overpay. But 12 is perfect to me. He's really, really important to what they do. Now, as we're going to discuss, what he was able to do was reduced drastically once the three of Booker, Brooks, and Green were together. And I thought that Collin was the guy most affected by that trio out of anyone. So if that trio is indeed back, how does Collin get back to the effectiveness that he had in the first 60 games of the season? He had some injuries, he was wearing down and all of that, but I really do believe most of the ineffectiveness we saw from him in the last 2 months of the season was due to those three guys being back and just pretty much not only dominating the ball, but affecting the way the ball moved. And we know that Collin and Oso were the secret sauce there. And then like my main reaction, and I have 2 different stories up on the website right now about Collin and then Jordan as well, is that we kind of look at this and we're like, okay, you guys are with me. I'm sure a lot of listeners are with me. And that like if they just hold firm right now and just bring back Mark Williams now too and just draft a guy and that's it. Like they add maybe a minimum guy. or two. They're probably going to regress, but the counterpoint for that is not so much health. It's that if they're healthy, they should have one of the best benches in the league now, because that's Collin off the bench. I guess it's Oso off the bench, but it's Jordan off the bench as well. And if you look through their best lineups last year, Collin was in pretty much all of them, and then Jordan was in pretty much all of them as well. So being able to have those guys not overextend their role by starting or playing 25, 30 minutes a game and getting them in chunks instead is going to be great for this team. And I expect them, like, end of first quarters, when it's Book, Iguodaro, Gillespie, and Goodwin, for that to be their best lineup next year.
It's one of the strangest stories of the season for the 25-26 Suns, right, Kellan, in that if you just slice up the net rating statistics, like, you know, most of the best players on the Suns were already their bench players. And, you know, Collin ended up starting quite a few games, and Jordan started a few games, and Oso started a few games, and, you know, maybe they're not capable, we don't know, of sustaining the same success if you projected them as starters, but in many cases, like, the worst net rating guys for the Suns were the guys who were making all of the money. And so just a really strange kind of roster composition that we're going to have to reckon with for sure over the next month or two, and see whether they end up making any changes or not. But, like, at least in the meantime, what we can celebrate today, before we get into all the nitty-gritty of, like, what does the rest of the roster look like? Are they going to stay put? We can definitely celebrate the fact, I think, that here it is, June 21st, and they wanted to bring back two of their best players in the net rating numbers and many of the per-game numbers, honestly, last year. And they've already accomplished that, right? They've already accomplished re-signing Collin Gillespie for 4 years, re-signing Jordan Goodwin, who we'll get to in a minute, for 3 years. And they didn't even have to let either of those guys go and test the market in free agency. So, you know, I think to some extent when Ishbia and Gregory talk about wanting to reset the culture and kind of rebooting the culture in Phoenix, these are, especially in the case of Gillespie, true developmental success stories that they can point to, and then culture success stories in the fact that they were already able to retain these guys, and it's not even July 1st yet. It's not even draft night yet.
Collin, I'm very excited to have Collin Gillespie back. I'll start there. I think that we're going to talk about Jordan Goodwin next, too. These are sort of, for us, Sam, you and I, these are back-to-back, the Timeline Dan Marley Hustle Player of the Year of the Week of the Year winners for our Patreon podcast. So these guys are obviously, like, massive, important guys for this team, and they're really great at filling in the gaps around
Not to mention
Devin
Collin
Booker.
making an appearance on the pod last year, the only player we've had.
That's true. The only player we've ever had on the podcast. But, Kellan, you started off immediately talking about him as as a bench player. He wasn't. I mean, like, he wasn't a bench player for the Suns. And that includes when Jalen Green got back. Like, I'm not sure. Maybe he should be. Like, that's probably the role that he probably should be. But even after Jalen Green got back, which was February 7th, of the 30 games that Collin Gillespie played after Jalen Green got back, he started 26 of them. Often with Jalen Green in that starting lineup. And, maybe that says more about how Jordan Ott feels about Jalen Green than it does, or just the overall roster makeup than it does, Collin Gillespie as a starter. But, like, he was a starter on this team. I'm not sure that's good or bad, but it is something that I've sort of had to really consider, especially understanding, like, that we're going to have $36 million or whatever going to Jalen Green. We're going to have almost $11 million going to Collin Gillespie. We're going to have, we'll talk about it in a second in more detail, but like $6 million-ish going to Jordan Goodwin. And it's just like a lot of money going to guys that are under 6'5", on this team. And it just makes you wonder if there is an odd man out this offseason, and if there's not an odd man out this offseason. Because right now, these are tradable contracts for both Jordan Goodwin and Collin Gillespie as well, right? We can talk about Jalen Green as a trade candidate right now, too. But these are tradable contracts for these guys that are considered value contracts around the league, it seems, right now. But it makes me wonder if there's no odd man out now during the offseason, will it come at the trade deadline? Or will it take all the way till, next offseason for them to realize that this much money going to short guys is probably not the way to go long term, especially when the fit isn't there. But I'll ask this, too, since I brought him up as a starter to you, Kellan. You talked about Collin struggling late in the season. And I think this is actually a point that really Suns fans can lock in on because they were there game to game to game, watching every game. Collin Gillespie, last 15 games of the season, shot 31% from three and was not very good in the playoffs. After those 15 games, in the 4 games they played in the playoffs, didn't shoot very well either. And just sort of looked like he hit a wall. You tied it to the point where Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green were back. Do you think that Collin Gillespie's struggles were more related to a fit with those players who appear to be coming back next year, or just that it was his first season playing 80 games, which, by the way, is second most on the team of all the players on the team? Or, where do you see the issues with Collin Gillespie late in the season and in the playoffs?
He was definitely hurt. We'll start there. It was the injury's not getting listed on the injury report, but he's hurt. And you'll remember he sat out the last game of the year, but it was with an injury that we hadn't heard about, like his right shoulder, I want to say, off the top of my head. And it sounded like that had been something that had been bothering him for a while. And it was something that he was playing through for a while that just wasn't even get listed. To your point on his shooting the last 15 games and the playoffs and such, if you look at November through March, so like those big 5 months that we have of the NBA season, a little bit in October, a little bit in April, his shooting splits by that month from three, 44%, 44%, 42.6, 39.6, and 36.1. So he was remarkably consistent as a shooter throughout nearly the entire year, and then I knew the playoffs come. I didn't really think that he had that bad of a postseason. I thought in Game 2 specifically, he was awesome. He guarded Shea well in the first half, which I would have never expected him to be able to do, if I'm being honest, but he did really well there. I think the main thing that he gives the Suns is the shooting, obviously, but having a trusted, not secondary ball handler, but somewhere between a tertiary ball handler and a connector. His ability to run two-man game with the bigs is the best on the team. They're going to really need that from Malawach next year, but you also want to play Gillespie with Oso. And the reason why I view Collin ultimately as a bench guy is even if he starts, those are the guys that he's going to be playing with a lot. I think he'll be first guy out in a lot of those kinds of instances with Green as well. If they do start that lineup, I think they're going to start Rasheer. We'll see. I don't want to get people on the pod too excited because I know everyone wants to see that. Or I think another move is coming because to your point, Mike, on the roster crunch, I did the numbers in the site, so we know the basis, like 48 minutes, you got 5 positions, all that kind of stuff. The math adds up. You basically got 192 minutes at those 4 spots that you can play guys for. So on the non-perimeter, and I'm not even, or on the perimeter, non-bigs, and I'm eliminating double big lineups now at all. So if we go 4 perimeter guys, I'm giving Book 34, giving Green 32, I'm giving Brooks 30. Those are their career averages. I'm going to give Gillespie 24. I'm going to give Rasheer 20. I'm going to give Goodwin 20. That leaves 32 minutes for Grayson, Royce, Haywood, Ryan, and whoever else. So they're just out of...
Doesn't add up, man.
No, it doesn't. It didn't last year either, but they were fortunate in this one lone extent to not have to go through this until the end of the year. And remember, it was weird to just watch them play as much as they did against OKC and not see Royce on the floor and see him on the bench instead. Does that make sense? It was just because he was such a constant for them all year. It doesn't add up, and I think the other problem here is that everything that they have great culturally, everything great that they have from a locker room dynamic, if Grayson or Royce gets unsettled, because guess what they should be if they're going to only play 15 minutes a game because they're capable of more, especially in the regular season, then you just don't want to mess with that. So even if you trade one of those guys for a few second-round picks and you don't get really that great of a return for them, the benefit is you just open up your rotation a lot more. The dream is that you trade one of those guys for another 6'9" wing, but you're probably not going to be able to get that because what does every team in the league want right now? 6'9" wings. So that's the issue there. But I really like bringing back both guys, and that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is you've got 2 culture drivers on your team, and you need to create room for them to play. The last thing that should happen is if Jordan gets off to a bad start shooting the ball and he stops playing. He needs to play every night. He needs to play 15 to 20 minutes. Collin needs to play at least 15 to 20 minutes. It's non-negotiable. They're so big for what they do and what made them a good team last year. It was not talent. It was not Book playing at a superstar level. It was all of these types of guys playing above their weight, and I think those guys are going to continue to do that and more so prove that this is their weight.
Yeah, the stat I keep coming back to with Collin is just, he did play 80 games last year, but he finished the season 10th in the NBA in pull-up three-point volume. it's just absurd what he was able to do in terms of sort of launching the Suns offense from that perspective, and what he'll need to continue to do. Obviously, we know there's massive constraints in his game that will affect his ability to, I don't know, reach a higher ceiling that I kind of want to talk about with you guys. Just like, do we think there's another level for Collin to go? Because he was basically a zero all season long in terms of his ability to get inside the paint and generate paint touches and score at the rim, but was so good as a pull-up three-point shooter. We've seen...
And catch and shoot. He can shoot from
and catch and shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't want to discount the fact that he can do both. I think, we've seen guys of his profile, and by that I mean like the 6'1" undersized guard who is talented offensively but just has those physical limitations. I think we've seen a bunch of guys in recent history in the NBA get offered contracts. And I think in some cases it's worked out really well. And in other cases it's worked out not so well. I think, where on the spectrum do you guys fall in terms of evaluating Collin's late 20s ceiling or his potential? Between the worst case scenario is a guy like Gabe Vincent, who, if you remember, had one good season with Miami in the playoffs and then got signed for $11 million a year by the Lakers, and kind of, he's dealt with injuries, but has just like topped out as like a 7-point per game guy ever since. He just hasn't been the same. Or, on the high level, like, I think you could point to a guy like Fred VanVleet as a comp for Collin Gillespie, who is an all-star, a one-time all-star, but, technically like ascended to a level where he was comfortably a starting level point guard who could command a half-court offense, shoot a ton of threes, and at least defend really well for his position, if not being like multi-positional because he's 6'1". So kind of have you guys like adjusted your priors even more on Collin based on what we thought he was going to be 12 or 18 months ago?
Go ahead, Kellan.
This is always like the impossible place your front office is put in, right? Like, Collin played so well and established himself so well that you have to try to extend him. And this is something that is more common in baseball, where in baseball someone will like statistically have a really great year, but they are so analytics based, so projection based, so inside the numbers based, that someone like won't get paid or won't get re-signed. You're like, wait, why didn't they do that? And then you see them on the next team and they're not the player that they were the previous year, or like they were a one-year wonder, or they were someone who was aging a lot quicker than like a casual fan would think. Like, in basketball, you just kind of got to pay the guy if he's important to the role that he holds. Like, if they were able to find someone else that does what Collin does, then sure, but that's not really easy because he's unique in a lot of ways, and so is Goody, which is kind of the position that they were put in as well. And you just hope, I think the defining factor here, Mike, is that you have Jordan Ott as your head coach. If you didn't have Ott as your head coach and he wasn't maximizing guys and using guys smartly like he did all year, then I would maybe be concerned about that. But that's like the divisive factor for me that pushes it over, and it's like conclusive for me that feels pretty good about re-signing both guys at higher price tags than maybe you would have thought.
Yeah, I do think that Collin Gillespie, understanding what his ceiling can be and what he can grow into, is particularly difficult just because he has only played one full season in the NBA. And yeah, that makes it harder. And that, maybe if he had multiple seasons doing what he did last season, he would have made 20 plus million or something, as a starter on a team that made the NBA playoffs, shooting one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. It's tough to argue that he wouldn't have gotten more money if that were the case. I think with him, not seeing it at the end of the season and not seeing it as much in the playoffs, although, like you said, Kellan, he did have moments in the playoffs, and I actually think there's a possibility that he's playable in the playoffs, although there's times where I thought maybe he's not, and the playoffs change and are drastically different. We just saw Jose Alvarado get finals minutes, so like context and the team around them really does seem to matter a lot too, so you never know which guys are actually going to be successful because the context is going to matter so much.
Yeah, and Sam, you can't just not sign a guy because he might not be able to play in the finals. You know what I mean? Like, we do this all the time where we watch Oklahoma City and San Antonio and we're like, how do you play? Who do you play against that guy? You can't just use them as a barometer for every single thing that you're going to do.
Yeah,
I know the end goal is winning championships, but
plenty of people would have said that, those sorts of things about like Mitch Robb or Josh Hart or some of the guys who just won a championship with
Jalen
right?
Brunson can't win a title as the best player on a team, famously.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was an NBA coach that said that. Where does this leave in your mind, Kellan? Just the Collin Gillespie signing, just on its own. Where does this leave you with Jalen Green? Does it affect how you think about Jalen Green at all?
No, but it does make you even more comfortable in trading him if you're able to do so. I think I'll put it that way. Even if you were able to trade him without Collin, I would still feel comfortable doing it and feel like it's what needs to be done. But yeah, I mean, ideally, the ideal thing is that Collin's not starting. Does that make sense? And that's why I'm operating under that lens, is because the ideal thing is you trade. I heard you guys on the Fake Trade Pod, Wiggins, there was like a Wiggins thing in there somewhere where it's like, so if you could have Book, Brooks, Wiggins, Fleming, whoever's at the 5, like, okay, like that's an actual like basketball team in terms of size. So I think Collin is just going to be best utilized in that kind of way, but the fact that you have the versatility and he's so proven as a starter that you can turn to it when you need to, is really good. But no, it doesn't change how I evaluated it all. They got to get off of him or Dylan, honestly.
Imagine buying your kid a toy only to find the batteries aren't included, or buying furniture but missing the tools to build it. Frustrating, right? Now imagine the exact same feeling, but you're paying way more. That is what buying business software usually feels like. Fragmented, disconnected, and incredibly expensive. Odoo completely changes that. Odoo is a complete, fully integrated business suite where all your apps actually talk to each other. We're talking automated lead routing for your sales team, seamless AI integration, and intuitive point-and-click website builder. It's everything your business needs to scale, saving you time, headaches, and money. Stop piecing your software together. Go to odoo.com. That's ODOO.com to learn more.
You've heard us talk about Alchemy Roast before, but if you still haven't tried them, consider this your reminder. One of the things I appreciate about Alchemy is that they're focused on the coffee itself. They source quality beans, roast in small batches, and pay attention to the details that make a difference in the cup. Whether you're making pour over, espresso, or just a standard drip coffee at home, it's the kind of coffee that makes you look forward to your morning routine. And if you're someone who drinks coffee every day, upgrading what you're brewing is one of the simplest changes you can make. And you've been hearing these ads thinking, I'll check it out later. Well, now is a good time. Head to alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code TIMELINE to get 10% off your order. That's alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE today to support them, a local Phoenix business, and to support us here on this podcast.
You know what it would allow too, if I can use this as our segue, because we do need to eventually talk about the draft, but if you had like a small forward, like a real small forward, like Andrew Wiggins, that's used as your example, but allowing Jordan Goodwin, who was so overwhelmingly awesome as a rebounder, particularly an offensive rebounder last year, but allowing him to give you that advantage as an actual 2 guard. And not forcing him to take that advantage, but then play him at the 3 or 4 where automatically that advantage is neutralized, right? That would be very cool. Because Jordan Goodwin last year averaged 3.2 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes, in addition to all the steals, in addition to the fact that he actually shot 37% from deep, really good numbers as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, maybe the most consistent of his career in terms of the blend of volume and efficiency. Getting that guy for what is it, $6 million a year?
Yeah, in fact, just
6.3.
Just to actually sort of say what Shams Charania did, tweet about this for anyone who missed it. But Jordan Goodwin intends to sign a 3-year, $19 million deal to return to the Phoenix Suns with a player option in the 3rd season. So this is essentially the tax-paying MLE level, which is about what Sam, you and I thought he would get, and actually I think a really good deal for Jordan Goodwin. The player option, not my favorite. I wish it was just 3 years so you can keep him for longer, because this is just the kind of guy that if you watched the Suns last year, you want to keep watching him on the Suns. He is so easy to root for, and just had such a fantastic season for the Suns, not only with his ability to defend and create possessions, whether it be forcing turnovers or offensive rebounds, but his willingness and Jordan Ott's trust in him to just launch it from three and just go full send on those 3-point shots for him, whether it be off the dribble or in catch and shoots, made him, I think, a more effective offensive player. And credit to him, by the way, because the last time he was on the Suns, he couldn't shoot. And he worked on it. He shot well in Los Angeles. The Lakers let him go so that they could sign Bronny, and the Suns benefited from that. And now they have a guy potentially for 3 years who I think was really great and so easy to root for on the Suns last year. Sam and I, we talked to you at the game that we went to, Kellan, where we sat essentially in the front row. Seeing Jordan Goodwin's defense up close is just nuts. This dude is so physical and so in your face defensively. It's something that really stood out to us when we were that close to the court, and sort of realizing how much, frankly, he gets away with from the refs because of his reputation as a defender was really awesome to see. I'm really excited for him to be back, and I think that this deal is a good deal for Jordan Goodwin. What do you think, Kellan?
100% agree. I would have gone to 8 figures, no problem. And I
Whoa.
know that's kind of scary. Because
I understand that. Yeah,
it's kind of scary because if the shooting drops off, it's cooked. But he did a lot offensively beyond the offensive rebounding, and by that I mean he was a trusted 0.5 guy in the corner. His turnover rate has always been pretty low. It was pretty low again last year, like a good 2-to-1 ratio for someone like him who basically isn't asked to play make ever, is what you need. And then he was able to provide that. He was one of their 5 most important players last year. Mike had the tweet where it was like, is Jordan Goodwin like the MVP of the team? Because when they stopped trying as hard in the last month and a half of the season, the signature play of the season would always be the Suns are in a lull, Jordan's pressing a guy, using the base, using the sideline and the half-court line as a barrier, jamming a guy in that corner, making him dribble it off his foot, and then yelling and clapping and like trying to get energy going.
100%.
He did that probably like 40, 50 times in the season, and I'm sure it correlated with runs for them as well. I hated that he didn't get a single all-defense vote. If I had a ballot, he would have been on my second team.
Probably saved the Suns money, to be honest, the fact that he didn't.
Him not getting a vote is the first time I felt motivated to try to get a vote. I was like, he can't go without a vote. Like, I'm not saying he should have made second team or anything, but he would have been on mine.
Wasn't even on. Does EJ still have a ballot? Does anyone?
No one's ballot. Yeah, no one's ballot. Again, like there's a lot of like marquee awesome defenders in the league, but Phoenix for a lot of the season was one of the best defensive teams in the league, and he was their best defensive player by a mile.
I was begging for him to start. Eventually, he did. I really thought he should have been the 5th starter for a longer period of time.
I think that's another important point that you just made there, Mike, is the fact that they're going to have whatever starting lineup that they have, and ideally it's a starting lineup that works without Goodwin or Gillespie in there. But the fact that they can intertwine those lineups with a lot of trust and have Goody close some games or have Collin close some games, it is going to be big. Like if Rashir's having one of those like young player moments and you don't want to put him out there, just put Goody at the 4. Like you did it a ton last year by necessity, but he proved you could make it work. So super happy for him. Because I think I'm super happy for him. Sorry, Sam. Just super happy for him because Collin is probably a guy where if it doesn't work here, he gets another shot or two in the league. If it didn't work here for Jordan, I don't know how many more chances he would have had left. I know it went well with the Lakers, and he had some interest after that, but it seemed like Jordan was one of those guys like Josh Okogie when he came here where it's like this needs to work out for him probably, or else he might have to look into playing overseas or in the G League. And he's way too good of a player and way too fun of a player to watch for that to be his fate. So I'm glad that he's going to be here for a while.
Yeah, just a massively easy guy to root for, as both you guys are saying, and was always going to be difficult for a player like that to scrap for more opportunities in the NBA. Interestingly, with what Mike is talking about there, when Goody started, I think that if I remember correctly, like, it was towards the end of the season, the Suns weren't winning many of those games, but his stats were pretty good. He shot 41% from 3 in those games. He averaged 10 points per game as a starter, 57% true shooting, which for Jordan Goodwin you absolutely take. Like, he has a knack and an ability to kind of just blend into his environment and his surroundings, and it didn't feel like a guy at all where it's like, okay, Jordan Goodwin's just an energy guy who, is meant to be the ninth man on your team and he can play small stints and that's it. Kind of like a Javon Carter type or whatever. He was definitely a cut or two above that, where he has the ability to just enter a starting lineup, and no matter what position he's playing, if it's the 2, the 3, the 4, he can impact the game. Mm-hmm. So really happy for him.
Josh Hart is the guy that I always bring up. If he was 2 inches taller, obviously that would be helpful because that's what Josh Hart is. But that's the kind of impact that he has, I think, where it's very, very similar. Josh Hart has a little bit more offensively, but I kind of feel like there's a little bit more to be tapped into with Jordan Goodwin as well if he were to play, like you said, Sam, more of a guard position instead of guarding power forwards. Like, he has the strength, if there's smaller guys guarding him, that he could just sort of drive downhill a little bit and maybe start the offense moving a little bit. It's not going to be great, but just a little bit of that extra would be helpful. Like Josh Hart is so effective in transition, I'm not sure that Goodwin has that, because I think his size is probably a little bit to do with that. But everything that he does defensively and on the offensive rebounds just reminds me a lot of what he provides. I'm really happy to have him back. I think these 2 deals combined, if you look at it as like this is how much you're paying for these 2 guys, I feel pretty good about that, because I would have gone higher on Jordan Goodwin and I would have probably hoped to get Collin Gillespie a little bit lower, because I don't know. I guess let me ask you this, Kellan. Are you not concerned by the fact that we only have 1 year of evidence for Collin Gillespie here? Because that does concern me, because I'm just not sure. It seems like you're less worried about that than me.
I'm less worried than you, but I think you're foolish if you're not a little worried, just because, again, it is 1 year. But I think the thing I'll say to counteract that is he never really got an opportunity in Denver ever. So it's not like this was a guy who was bouncing around a bunch of spots and then got here. And then when he did play a little bit the year before, he flashed too in Phoenix. So I think that there's enough of a blank track record where this felt like his first real legit opportunity, and he crushed it. So I do get what you're saying, though. Like, seeing 4 years is like, okay, like if he's more of like a below average guard off the bench as opposed to someone who could be like your 6th starter, quote unquote, that is a more difficult contract. And I think not the elephant in the room, but the thing we haven't talked about and why we're being so delicate about these smaller deals is because of the Beal wave and stretch. Like, that is why you can't screw up any of these smaller moves, let alone like the bigger moves. Like, they can't screw up anything right now over the next couple of years, or they're going to be screwed.
One more thing before we get to the draft that I do want to talk about. There was a report by the Athletic reporter Mike Scotto that the Suns did background work. Funny how these reports are getting worded nowadays. The Suns did background work on Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey essentially makes the same amount of money as Jalen Green. Now, it's not to say the Suns can't get to that money another way, but if they got to that money another way and just had that many point guards on the team, that would be a little bit insane. So I think it's pretty clear, if this is to be believed, that the Suns were looking into Josh Giddey, which Gambo has since said the Suns are not interested in Josh Giddey. But if it's to be believed, then I think it could be assumed that they were considering some sort of Jalen Green-Josh Giddey swap. And just the idea around that, it seems like it's not going to happen based on what Gambo says. But I'm curious what you guys think about that, and I'll give my thoughts. But Kellan, what do you think about just the concept of Josh Giddey on the team instead of Jalen Green?
I think that it speaks to the Green problem, is that if you are trading Jalen Green, you're bringing in an imperfect player back. And again, to use the Wiggins example before, or like you guys brought up Miles Turner too, it's like those are like the easier to blows to take. Giddey is a much better player than all 3 of those guys. Not much better. He's a better player than all 3 of those guys, but he is a very like hyper specific, you gotta use him in this kind of way kind of thing. And that's where, of course, the Ott thing gets exciting as well. But I do not want him to get traded for someone who's ball dominant. And Giddey needs the ball because he can't shoot still. He's not really much on defense. Again, he's great if you can just give him the ball all the time and let him do the giddy things, and then he'll give you numbers at least. Like, I'm not going to look at Chicago and say you can't win with Josh Giddey because it's not going well with the freaking Chicago Bulls. But he's got a very specific skill set, but I think that this thought exercise more illustrates how if you trade Green or Brooks, you cannot do it for someone who is ball dominant unless it's a pass first point guard. Like, that's the only way that it can work.
It's difficult, right, Kellan? Because if you're trading them, you kind of still need a guy who can put the ball in the basket, but isn't ball dominant at the same time, right? So how do you balance that? Because presumably you're concerned about the fit with Devin Booker, but at the same time there is the worry of sort of neutering the offense of all possible options outside of Booker to score.
Josh Giddey played 54 games last year. Sam, off the top of your head, how many assists per game did he average?
7.
Kellan, do you have a guess?
8.4.
9.1.
Whoa.
Into 3.6
that's
turnovers. He shot he scored 17 points per game. Jalen Green shot 31% from 3. Do you want to guess what Josh Giddey shot last season?
34.
26.
36.4.
Whoa.
Wow.
So not only is he much, much better at shot creation for others at 9.1 assists per game, shot significantly better from 3 last season.
Well,
now,
okay.
I think Jalen Green is a better shooter. Like, I think career-wise, if you were to project who's going to be a better three-point shooter, I think Jalen Green takes more difficult shots off 3. Josh Giddey is probably left wide open constantly from the three-point line. But shot 37% in Chicago his last year and shot 36% in Chicago this last season. So, like, Josh Giddey has shot relatively well when left open in the scenarios that he is. Not a shooter.
Back-to-back years with 38% on catch-and-shoot threes. Back-to-back years.
Yeah, so, you know.
I just want to say, Mike, do you have the touch stats there? Because
I don't.
Obviously he's a better playmaker than Green, but to Kellan's point, was he averaging 100 touches per game? Because he might have been.
Maybe.
You know, so it's just a little bit different in terms of
But I mean,
role.
it is not. If Jalen Green averaged 9.1 assists, what do you think his turnovers
Those
would be?
were John Stockton assists. They were fake.
His turnovers
They
would
were
be
all
like
fake.
8.5 turnovers a game if it was Jalen Green we're talking about here instead of 3.6, which is what
Giddey
Josh
was
Giddey had.
third in the league in touches per game, 94.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
That is ahead of Jalen Brunson, Jalen Johnson, Cade Cunningham, Luka Doncic, Andrew Nembhard, what in the world, Denny Avdia, Kevin Porter Jr. Oh,
They didn't have
The
a
way
point guard.
some of these guys are used. Wait, is this on a permanent basis? Because no way you just said Kevin Porter Jr.
Kevin Porter Jr. is top. This looks like 12 in the league in touches per game last year. That's crazy. He was
insane.
that was you want to talk about Kevin Porter Jr. having fun. He was having a great time in Milwaukee. I'm sure he would love to be back there again. Oh my goodness,
That's fucking crazy.
Shout out Kennedy Chandler, the 11 games he played on Utah being top 25 on this list. What the Jazz did should not be forgotten, and the basketball gods should punish them extremely.
Well, that's why we're a little okay. We really have to move to the draft after this, but you know the concern of the overall approach for the Suns this offseason being we brought back our guys and we're really happy about that, and they're more expensive now. But like other teams are catching up in the sense that the Utah Jazz of last year that gave you 3 free wins. Did we even sweep the Jazz? I don't remember.
No,
but
they lost one, I think.
Okay, well, those, you know, you're not going to have those same gimmies against the bottom of the conferences next year. Everything's going to flatten out a little bit. So there really is that worry about regression. Mike, are you ready for draft talk? Have you done
Yes.
any research?
I have. I've done some
Okay.
research, but I really am sort of allowing Kellan to be our the sort of guide for us in this draft conversation. And I was talking to you, Sam, about this beforehand. I think what makes it difficult to scout the draft for the Suns is we have no idea where they're going to pick. And that's actually what's been difficult for me because I'm like, what do I scout the last, like, 35 picks in the draft, like from pick 27
yes.
to pick 47, basically. And
Unironically, yes.
I think you kind of have
the,
to.
I think the beauty of the draft is, and Kellan, feel free to jump in and disagree with anything I say.
Yeah,
but
for
like,
sure.
is there really such a thing as a reach at starting at like 25th to 30th in the draft,
absolutely
right?
not.
Like you get to that certain tier, and like yes, it means that there's more names that you have to like research and scout on your board. But I like the fact that realistically the Suns just aren't going to have a lottery pick. But anywhere that they could hypothetically trade up for, they could just take anyone there. Like there's a whole world of possibilities in terms of guys they might or might not like, which is kind of fun to think about.
Yeah. And Kellan, you wrote about the concept of the Suns being able to use cash in a trade, and
They're gonna.
And Gambo has since corroborated that essentially. And that is one of the things, right? If you're going to buy out Bradley Beal, if you're going to get out of the second apron, then use whatever that allows you to do. And one of the things it allows you to do is to use cash in a trade. So right now the Suns have the 47th pick. We're just assuming right now, Kellan, that they're not going to pick there, right?
No, I'm not the sources guy still. I don't report stuff, but when I speak in concrete, I typically feel pretty good about it, and I think I feel good about them trading up in a way where I think they will trade up, because they're going to have 8.5 is I think the number I heard Bobby Marks say for this year is the number for cash and trades is $8.5 million.
What?
Yeah,
that's a ton of money for just swapping cash for a draft pick. I had no idea it was that much.
Yeah, they had I think it was like $4.5 million they sent to Milwaukee for Nigel Hayes Davis thing. So they did use it last year a little bit, but the number will reset at the league calendar, and a lot of these trades go through the first near the end of the first week of July. The going rate, to Sam's point on how much money that is, like I think it was Indiana who traded up 10 spots to get Cam Jones, and it was like $3 million, $2 million. So they're, again, if they want to trade up and they got a guy, they're going to be able to do it. They have future second rounders to use, which, again, if you look at the last 2 years, they've used future second rounders a lot. Mm-hmm. They've got a couple that they could use, and more
basically all of them they traded to get Rasheer. Yeah,
exactly. And more importantly, the 2 second rounders left, if I'm correct, are their own in 29 and 33. I want to say. So they hold a little bit more value there well.
Where will we be in 2033?
Not on this planet, probably.
That's right. We'll be out of water by then, so don't worry about it.
I think, but yeah, I think they're going to trade up. It's just a matter of if they can get all the way up to the low 30s, which is like still not. It's not premium position, but it's still viewed pretty well. Like you saw what they had to do just to get 31 out of nowhere. But I do wonder if they could even get up to the first round.
This is an important distinction that I want to make, right? Because like theoretically, if they stayed at 47, that's two-way contract territory. That's like Kobe Bryant territory.
Vecini wrote that the difference between, he had a scout tell him the difference between the 45th ranked player and the 100th ranked player is not that much because of all this NIL stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but if you get up into the into the low 30s, where you took Rasheer, or the high 30s, however you would call that, where is this roster spot coming from for the Suns is what I wanted to say. If they use cash and trade up and get a guy in the late first round or early second round, they need to have the roster spot for that guy, right? Currently, they have 2 roster spots. One could theoretically be for Mark Williams, and the other one could theoretically be for this hypothetical player that we're talking about. And then there would be no free agent signings afterwards, right? Like, if there are no trades.
Are you counting Bouye?
Am I counting Bouye? I might be counting Bouye. Should I not be doing that?
He has the team option, so they could.
Okay. So you need to feel good about a guy in the late 20s or early 30s to perform better in the NBA than Jamari Bouye, which is possible, but is also not possible. So I don't know. Just have you thought through that problem as well, Kellan, of like where they have a lot of guys under contract now after the Collin and Goody extensions.
Yeah, let me clarify for you. 1 second. We're moving. Yeah, the 12 players that they have under contract. Oh, that's counting. Never mind. I believe it's 13, if I'm looking at this correctly. No, it's 12. It's 12, not including Mark Williams, but including Jamari Bouye. So you've got the trio. You've got the 2 vets, Allen and O'Neal. You've got Malawich, Highsmith, Dunn. That's 8. Iguodala and Fleming is 10. Gillespie and Goodwin is 12, and then Bouye is 13, but he has the option still. So they could decline Bouye and have 3 spots. They could have 2 if Mark is back.
Okay, so either that, yeah, right. That's a couple of options there. But if you didn't make any sort of Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Jalen Green trade, you're talking about those three spots either going to Mark Williams, Jamari Bouye, Mark Williams, whatever guy you get in the draft, and then hypothetical free agent, or maybe Jamari Bouye, whatever guy you get in the draft, hypothetical free agent, or just Mark Williams, Jamari Bouye, guy in the draft. Right. But like there's a bunch of ways you could get around to that number, but there's not a whole lot of roster flexibility left is I guess my point.
So I think what we saw we only have one like full off season to understand Brian Gregory. And if we want to really talk about it, the idea that Matt Ishbia is fully in charge because he's claiming that he wasn't previously when they were bad, but now he is. So we only have one offseason to fully understand what it looks like when they're in a draft. And what happened in that draft is they watched the first round. The first round ended. By the way, it'll be 2 days. The draft will be 2 days this time.
I hate
Tuesday
this so
Wednesday.
much.
Yeah.
I cannot stand this, dude.
Yeah,
I kind of like it.
I mean,
sorry.
For the players, it's kind of cool, but for content, it's kind of annoying.
It is good for us for content because it does stretch it out to 2 days of interest. But also, it's just like not so much the wait, but like it would be nice if the draft was just over in a day and then it's okay. Yeah. Off season starts. We have to wait another day, but teams are going to probably do stuff on Wednesday anyway, so we'll see.
So they saw the first round. They saw Rasheer Fleming did not go in the first round, and they thought he would go right away in the second round. So they did everything they could after identifying the player that they wanted to get up to the pick to where they could take that guy. Have you? I mean, the problem with us now, we all identified Rasheer Fleming. I think we even talked about him on this podcast with you, Kellan, at some point in the offseason last year. So we kind of understood him as a guy that could go in the first round, that may drop, and maybe the Suns could pick him. He did end up dropping. The Suns were able to get him. Do you get the impression that there is a specific guy, or are you just looking at a group of players trying to identify the guy that best fits what they're trying to look for this offseason, Kellan?
I think that there is so I've got like my own board in front of me right now. It's a top 25, and whoa. I've got 3 guys ranked 23, 24, and 25 in their own tier, and then that's it. So like that's basically like first round grades for me, and I would assume based on like the list that I've read and like looking at Sam Vecini's work and other works that like this is like a consensus around the league. Is that there aren't 30 first-round picks in this draft. Again, NIL has had a huge deal. Thomas Houck, who was probably going to be a lottery pick out of Florida, just went back to school, which was crazy. Like Yaxel Lendeborg going back to school last year was fine because he was like a borderline first-round pick. Maybe he would have gone top 20, whatever. But like there are guys who are even like lottery picks now. This is a big thing for Silver. I don't know when the next CBA thing is up, but he's got to figure out the rookie contracts now that compete with NIL because they're getting smoked right now. There's a really depleted amount. If we're talking about guys in the second round, like here's the ages of everyone ranked 30th or 31st or lower by ESPN. 24, 23, 23, 22, 22, 20, 25, 23, 23, 22, 23, 22, 22. It's just all these
it was the first
players.
thing. It was the first thing I noticed when I looked at the big boards and was just like, I mean, obviously, I know with second-round picks, it's like universally accepted that there's less upside, so you get a lot of seniors, but this is crazy. The amount of fucking 23 and 24-year-olds in here.
Fortunately, it's the kind of guys that they like for the most part, so that makes sense. But the thing that I'll say for them specifically with this is like someone like Henry Vasar out of North Carolina or Joshua Jefferson out of Iowa State, I have a first-round grade on. I could see them slipping to the second round in the way that Rasheer did, but like everyone else, like I have Koa Pete ranked around like the border of 20, but like he's not going to fall to the second round, or he's not going to fall to like 27 or 29. Like that's just not gonna happen. Chris Sadak out of Houston is someone who real raw toolsy, does he care about defense, went to Houston, a program that only cares about defense, proved a little bit there, but was still more of like a here's a guy with a bunch of tools thing. He's still going to go in like the top 20 or top 25. Like he's not going to fall because, again, the guys that we're talking about that are available at 32 or 37 are guys like Baba Miller or Ryan Conwell or Richie Saunders or Trayvon Brazil or Dylan Mitchell or Braden Smith or Felix Okpara, who are all juniors or seniors who were like developed and you just know what they are at this point.
Are those the guys
down.
that you have from your 23rd, 24th, 25th guys on your list?
Probably none of those guys.
Say that again.
So your top 25, who are the final 3 guys that you think could be in the Suns range potentially?
Who are the final 3 where if they were available at 31, you would be like, oh my God, get this guy?
Let me double check.
Let me tell you the guy that stood out to me when I did my very basic research, and I'm curious, Sam,
Love it.
if you feel
He's
any way
this
about
little guy, Darren Peterson, you may have heard of.
Okay, like Alex Karaban. He is from UConn and won multiple champions and is like an off-movement shooter who's pretty tall, like 6'7", and I'm like, this guy's a winner, a proven winner.
Oh no, he's been Villanova pilled.
Who can
He's
shoot
a winner.
2 national championships, didn't score a ton of points per game, 13 points per game, but was like a really good three-point shooter off of difficult shots and is kind of tall. I'm not convinced defensively he can be great, but like he's tall enough to play forward minutes and do some really like complex off-ball shooting that I think the Suns could actually benefit from, like a taller player being capable of doing that. But maybe I am a little, win-pilled, if you will. Just guys who are successful on successful teams.
It's also tough because so many of these guys, and this applies to a lot of prospects, but like Sanak, like you don't need to watch anything. Like I just described what he is, and that's what you're going to see when you watch. Like Karaban's interesting because he has a lot of the traits that you're talking about, but ultimately when we're looking for 6'7" to 6'9" guys on the roster, you're looking for guys that play like that size, if not bigger. And Karaban, I think, plays a little bit smaller.
It's
like
true.
He's just a bigger movement shooter. He's not an awesome. He's good at almost everything, but he's not great at like some of the things you want from your quote unquote modern power forward, like whatever the hell that even is anymore. I've been writing about that for years. I have no idea what it is. I think Rasheer could be it. But Karaban's not really a guy. You were asking Joshua Jefferson out of Iowa State is a guy that is going to be ranked from anywhere from like the low 40s to like high 20s. I have him like mid to low 20s. There's concerns with just how lateral he can be from a quickness perspective, but is legitimately a great passer, and Iguodaro is a fantastic passer, Oso is from like a standstill. Jefferson can like play make. He can like dribble off the bounce. He's 6'8", 240, huge dude. Not
sort
explosive.
of like PJ Washington vibes or something.
No, because PJ was twitchy. He's not twitchy in any kind of way.
He's 246 pounds, Sam, if
fluid,
that gives you a reference. Yeah,
fluid more than twithy. Quicker.
240. Wait, did you say 246?
That's what he's listed at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
he's
crazy.
6'7", 246.
He's a big dude, and he played. You can imagine he kind of played big more at Iowa State than he did like play as a wing or whatever. But he was facilitating pretty often. He can drive and kick. He can dump off to the big. He can hit it to the outside corner a little bit. The scoring isn't fantastic, but it's a lot better than someone like Oso in that stage. And then defensively, the thing that you love when you watch him is he has some of the best hands in the draft. Like his steal numbers are way higher than they should be because he's an okay defender. Maybe he can be a good one, but he's really just making an impact because he gets hands on absolutely everything. And his steal numbers should not be as high as they are, and that's going to hold up in the league too, where it's just this really unique trait that he has. The shooting was a little bit better this year, but it's still like the swing skill for him is that, and just if he can hang on defense. But that's the type of guy where he's a really good rebounder. He's a great offensive rebounder, the hands and everything. He really fits into what the Suns do, and it would be nice to have tertiary playmaking in like the forward big rotation just beyond Oso, because Oso was like the only guy that could do it at all, and he's really, really good at it, but no one else could even come close to doing it. And Jefferson could be that off the bench and is like the perfect type of thing where if I was drafting him 15, I would be incredibly nervous, but if I was drafting him at 22 or 32, I'd be thrilled to see if I could get this guy. And so much of this is like, if I was talking about this guy on the Suns 2 to 4 years ago, I'd be like, but you need a coach to use who knows how to use him. And I don't know if they have that. They have that. Like I think I would love this guy. Think of worse, not as athletic Collin Murray Boyles with like more offensive juice. That's
I kind
the
of
pitch.
don't mind the idea of giving Rasheer Fleming more competition because I like Rasheer Fleming as much as the next guy, but the way he's been kind of coronated by some members of the fan base and maybe even front office at this point makes me a little bit nervous. And it feels like Josh Jefferson would be a prospect of at least the same kind of stock and tier that could, hypothetically leapfrog him if things go south, right? Like, I'm not saying he's better or worse, but just a guy who has the ability to play the same position. I know one guy circled is Zubi Ejiofor. For sort of the same reason, feels like a 4-5 tweener in the same way that I think Rasheer Fleming is. Would probably go way higher on people's big boards if he wasn't like this 6'7", also 245, 250 pounds big. But maybe questionable 3-point shooting at the college level, but just like really, really high defensive numbers, the ability to play make, get some assists. I just think that could be interesting. We already did one draft segment before last week, Kellan, where I kind of talked about some of the guys I like who maybe have slightly higher potential, right? I don't think there's that many of them once you get into the 30s. It really just feels like most of these guys are probably pretty finished projects. Do you want to talk about Baba Miller a little bit? Because I thought he was interesting as well.
Yeah, because he's the guy where there's more left to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's been in college basketball for 4 years, so we do kind of know what it is. But him and Dylan Mitchell out of St. John's, who's another guy that I wrote about, were high-end recruits when they came out. So there is another player archetype that comes up in the second round where you get the 4-year player who was supposed to be a first-round pick at some point. Dylan Mitchell was a top 10 recruit in the country. And then Miller was around top 50. He came over from Spain, from the Real Madrid Academy. So there was precedent there. Went to Florida State. It didn't work. He got suspended for a little bit for, I can't remember, for like taking $3,000 one time, like grow up. Like that happening now would be insane with everything that's going on with NIL and such. I think the appeal with him is that everything I talked about with Jefferson, they're kind of similar players, but Baba Miller is a very fluid, quick, twitchy athlete at that size and does some of the playmaking. It's not as refined. It's not as polished as Jefferson, but that's what he can do. He can't shoot at all. Him and Mitchell both can't shoot at all, and it's just one of those things where, again, we're talking about, to Sam's point, you just got to treat him like he's not going to be able to shoot because he's been in college for 4 years and basically just stop shooting threes. At Cincinnati, tremendous rebounder. The defense is where you'll find a draft Twitter person who thinks he's one of the best defenders in the draft, and then you'll talk to other people or read with other people who think he has a lot of inconsistencies on defense, but like the tools are there. So if we're talking about like a Rasheer Fleming type, he is undeniably the guy, and if they just want to draft another Rasheer Fleming again, this is the guy, hands down.
Yeah.
He's listed at a legitimate 6'11", 3/4 with a 9'3" standing reach, and he's like a small forward, power forward, which is really interesting. Obviously, there's that concern of he doesn't shoot threes really, and what if he never can? But like, I struggle to think of a recent prospect who's just like 6'11", 200 pounds. Like he has a really interesting frame. It's kind of Michael Porter Jr.-esque, I guess, but like way better athlete in theory. So. Yeah, he's fun.
Let me ask this.
Another name. Go ahead.
We've gotten a lot from Brian Gregory, Matt Ishbia, and to some extent from Jordan Ott about the concept of what the Phoenix Suns culture is. And I believe you wrote an article about guys in the draft that match that culture, Kellan. So I'm curious which guys stand out as guys based on what they have told us they believe it is. I'm curious the guys that are guys that match what that is. And aside to that, the reason I sort of separated Jordan Ott from that is because although I like Baba Miller, Jordan Ott only played the guys who could shoot. Like the guys who couldn't shoot played less and less and less over time outside of Oso Ighodaro. But we saw Ryan Dunn's minutes go less and less and less as the season went on. We were begging for more.
It took Jordan Goodwin shooting 37% from three to get away with it, right? Otherwise, he probably would have been in the doghouse too.
Yeah,
more Royce O'Neal minutes.
They wanted guys who can shoot. I mean, he wants guys who can shoot, and part of it is that the Suns don't have a lot of options to create offense. Just Devin Booker. So the more you can get threes up, the better your offense could be. So I kind of understand the challenge that they have, and maybe there is a world where you fill it with athletes who can't shoot, then you find ways to get easier possessions off of transition or something like that. But I do just look at these guys who can't shoot in the draft and go, well, I guess we'll see them in 3 years or whatever. Like, we're just not going to watch them play this upcoming year. Rasheer Fleming, to his credit, earned minutes by knocking down corner threes when he was asked to shoot them, and I think that's the reason he continued to play as the season progressed. So from your perspective, Kellan, who are the guys that match the culture that Matt Ishbia and I guess Brian Gregory are, as they describe it, and then do they meet the criteria for Jordan Ott to actually give them minutes?
There are a lot, just because we're talking about guys who definitively like know who they are. And someone like Braden Smith, the point guard out of Purdue, for example, like leads college basketball in assists, was one of the best point guards in the country for several years. Like he knows exactly what he is, and you know exactly what you're getting with him. And those types of guys, when they drive culture the way that they did for their given program, whether it was him or whether it was some of the other names that I mentioned earlier, like Joshua Jefferson, who was there. A guy that I really like, who's like really low on boards, Iowa State point guard Tamin Lipsey. ESPN has him 74. Like Jordan Goodwin, but a guard, like an actual guard is what I'm saying. Like he can.
What's
be
his
a point
name
guard.
again? Sorry.
Tamin Lipsey, Tamin Lipsey, Lipsey. I can tell you really don't watch college basketball at all, Sam, because you don't know who Tamin Lipsey is, and I love that. That's just fantastic.
Never heard that name in my life. So
yeah, so he Iowa State was like this middling program for a while after Hoiberg left, and then Lipsey came back and was pretty much like their version of a culture driver in a lot of ways. Just a winning play guy, so much so where I know this will sound corny, but they stopped calling them winning plays in their program and called them Tamin plays. He's unbelievable. He's a fantastic rebounder, awesome defender, has been a 4-year player for them, 4-year starter all the way through. Can do point guard stuff, can get to the rim a little bit, but like defense is what you're looking for. So if you're looking for like an on-ball lead guard, like backup point guard-y kind of Jordan Goodwin duplicate, like just try and clone Jordan Goodwin, he would be the guy. And then someone I really like
I love Jordan Goodwin. I don't know if we can do a full roster of Jordan Goodwin. Yeah, okay.
He's not going to play every game.
Would you like someone that is like another person who's 6'5" or shorter? Tamin's even short for a point guard. He's 6'1", so there you go. That's fantastic. We can just keep adding all these guys. Someone with size who I like and I think is more of like he should probably go in the 30s and might go a little bit later than that, is Nick Martinelli out of Northwestern. Incredibly productive scorer. Lefty, does like a couple of crafty lefty things, like really awesome footwork, really good off the ball with like his movement and where he's used. Like has a decent bag as a scorer. He was good as a standstill catch and shoot 3-point shooter this year, which was big for him. Defense is just more about making smart plays, finding the right spot to put him, all that kind of stuff, because not that explosive of an athlete and that kind of stuff, but like really skilled, smart scorer. And him and Richie Saunders out of BYU are the two like established guys. The difference with Martinelli is like he's 6'8", he plays tough as shit, he's super physical. And Saunders plays that way as well, but he is more like Suns roster sized, if that makes sense. Like he's a 6'5", 6'6", like in the Caravan range of perimeter
he's
players.
Also 30 years old, right?
Yeah, he's going to be 25. But I again, I don't really think that matters too much to the Suns either. Like if they find a guy that they like equally between their 25 and 22, like I just think it should be the guy that they like more. And Saunders is fun just because he's like he might be the best shooter in the draft. He's fantastic. You use him off movement. That was the Kevin Young thing. KY got him and just started maximizing him and using him off movement as much as possible, drawing up NBA level sideline out of bounds plays that had normal college coaches who suck at their job most of the time, like just flummoxed by how open they were getting all the time. He's really fun too, but that would be like if you move Royce and Grayson, like if you have room for a 6'5", 6'6" shooter, right, then he's the guy. As well. There really isn't anyone to like kind of like conclude my point on like this pick. There isn't really anyone that I'm like jumping around for though to that point. Like if Vassar falls or if Jefferson falls, that would be to me like the guy to go get.
Vassar's fun. We talked about him last week too. I brought him up just because like give Devin Booker a big who can shoot and do things offensively.
Actually shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard you guys on him. I think he can defend. I don't know. Maybe I didn't watch enough North Carolina, but I obviously watched him at Arizona. and truly like high level, impactful defense for a handful of games.
Interesting.
It was on and off, but I think he can defend. The shot blocking numbers are a little bit low, but yeah, the jumper looks good for him, and he's another like tough, physical kind of player as well. My guy, Dalen Swain out of Texas. He's ranked in somewhere between the teens, mid-teens to like low 20s. If he's for some reason on the board of the 20s still, the Suns should go get him. If there is a Dylan Harper in this class, it's him in terms of downhill. Does all the things you want for a downhill scorer. I won't go into like specifics and stuff. Just can't shoot, but he's a third-year player who went to Texas and took on this high-level, high-usage role, lost his defense a little bit, but if you go watch him at Xavier, his 2 years, he was defending. Like 6'8", twitchy athlete. I think I have him as a top 12 guy. I think he should go in the lottery. But if for some reason he's around in the 20s, the Suns should go get him, because we would talk about rim pressure, we talk about needing supplementary scoring to what you were talking about earlier, and just getting more athletic. He could actually do all of those things to the point where I'm not the 2033 pick. That would be really scary to give up, and I wouldn't do that per se. But using other assets to try and get up if he's falling a little bit, which in my opinion is going to happen.
I know you're such a huge college basketball guy, Kellan, obviously compared to us, but just compared to most people too. Do you have any international thoughts? Because one guy circled is Sergio De La Rea, who is, we were talking about how old all of these second-round prospects are. This guy is 20 years old compared to all these other, college seniors who are 22 or 23. So he's a 6'6" shooting guard who's 20. He played for Valencia, so already a very high level of basketball. His per 36 numbers, 19 points, 7 assists per 36 for Valencia, shot 41% from three, 83% for the free throw line. I just circled his name really because of that age thing, and then I watched some highlights. Do you have any takes there? I like the idea of a guy you could get in the second round who might actually have the long-term potential to be a 3-level scorer, if you can find that.
Yeah, and I think that's fun if you think that you can, again, we talk about like continuity and running it back. If they do make some version of an Allen or O'Neal trade and then are able to make a Green trade too, I don't hate the idea of getting someone who's like a draft and stash, and that's what he would be. I'm not too familiar. I just know like the base level bio of what he is. Like I didn't go back and watch anything.
So do I,
him.
pretty much. Yeah.
The kid out of the Aussie as well, Jack Kale is another one where Sam Vecini has him 41. He describes him as a physical jack of all trades, master of none combo guard who struggles to separate from his defender, like in terms of like the traits that they like. That's somewhere in there as well. And then the other guy that I kind of thought was fun was Noam Yakov, who plays, I don't even know where that team is from, but Sam has him in the low, has him 47. And says incredibly exciting lead guard who needs to rein in some of his wilder tendencies. And he is 21 years old. He's going to be 22 next season. So that's another one where if you're sitting there at 47 and one of those guys is still there and you don't really feel crazy about any of these seniors and their ability to come in and contribute this year or fight for a spot this year or next year, then you just stash a guy and see what happens.
Looks like he plays in Belgium for a team that I can't pronounce. I just had to look it up.
For the Arizona fans, Kellan, Koa Pete, Sam's favorite player.
Koa Meat. I just the nicknames would be very fun. That's all.
There's such drastic differing opinions on Koa Pete from draft guys. I'm not even just saying in Arizona, where we obviously get the mix of people who are fans of Arizona fans and people who hate Arizona, so you can never really know who to trust. And that side, but like people who are draftniks, like people who really research the draft, have dramatically differing opinions of Koa Pete. I've seen him, anywhere from the second round to like middle of the first round in mock drafts or draft boards, I should say. Sell me on him if you even like the idea of Koa Pete on the Suns. If he does fall, later in the draft where the Suns can actually pick him up.
Yeah, I really like him for Phoenix just because he's the profile of Jefferson, but really athletic. Like he's a brick shit house, 6'8", 240. He was called Mr. Arizona because he just won everything in high school here, and then internationally as well when he went to the under 16s, 18s, whatever level he was winning. He was winning gold medals there too. He's won absolutely everywhere. Helped us get to the first Final Four in a while. Athletically, it's really there. I thought that he was one of our best defenders this year and laterally can move. I think that he's going to be better than people think there. And I've felt more confident in my evaluation of like Arizona players on defense the last couple of years because Carter Bryant was someone who I think was ranked a tier too low as a potential like all defense guy as a defender. And I think we saw him as a rookie and like what he showed briefly that he does have the potential for that for sure. I think Koa's got switchability there for sure. The problem is that like how skilled we talked about Jefferson is and how Miller can do stuff off the dribble a little bit. Koa doesn't have that. It's a very elementary game for him. He loves taking a 2-dribble pull-up. He loves a fall-away 18-footer. His mid-post game and post-game kind of like that is just very predictable. And essentially what happened is he dominated in non-conference, including in a couple of huge games, opening against Florida, of course, and just went till the well with like a lot of the things that he does. But then once he got in conference play, once he was scouted a bit, once he played against like elite teams weekly, his consistency really went down offensively, and it was just hard to figure out how to use him because it's like, okay, probably should just kind of use him as like a diver at this point. Like the mid-post touches are good, but it's just the same kind of thing over and over again, and teams are looking out for it now. So that's kind of the problem with him is because the offensive bag is limited. I didn't even mention the jump shot yet. Like the jump shot being broken, whatever. He can figure that out later, or he can't figure that out later. Like he needs to get more skilled and talented as a scorer offensively for it to get there, and I believe that he will. But you just need to be patient with that because everything else, like the winning plays, intangibles, rebounding, passing, switchability defensively, like I mentioned, the physicality, he's their type of dude to a T. So him and Swain are the two where if they were available in the low to mid 20s and they were there and the Suns had to give up like something sizable, like maybe the other tradable first round pick, not the one, because the other tradable first round pick is worth mentioning because I believe it's the other Cleveland, Minnesota, Utah one, right? Like that's the other one that they have. Mm-hmm. So that is one you can offer a team and be like, look, this is probably going to land in the 20s, but guess what? We're in the 20s right now. If you want a guaranteed pick that's probably going to be in your range, but you just want to punt a year on this guaranteed contract or, you know, like the guys or whatever, here's this pick. Like I could definitely see them thinking about that, and I definitely think that they should do that if one of these two guys is available because the athletic tools that we're talking about and like the upside for like stuff on the ball and brim pressure, whatever, that type of thing, getting all of that from someone with true size, both those guys would be great.
And just to say, with Koa, we talked about Jordan not preferring to play guys who can shoot. Like, what do you think? What do you think about that shot in the NBA? Like,
I think he'll get there because his background is super interesting. He's basically one of those, like, he was supposed to be an NBA player when he was born, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Because everyone in his athlete is high-tier athletes. His brother is either a Pro Bowl or All-Pro, like, offensive tackle in the NFL. His dad had a really long, successful NFL career as well. Just like a family of athletes, like, this is what they do. And so, like, the mentality of him, like, getting to work and improving on something, like, he's already been doing that his whole life. It's not someone who just picked up basketball 6 years ago or 4 years ago or has to learn how to get through, like, the daily grind of, like, an NBA season and all that kind of stuff being a professional. Like, he's going to have that locked in. I just think that it's going to take a while because it's the Mikal Bridges Twitch thing where hearing that he completely changed it at the Combine and is completely changing it is not good. That just means it's going to be another year or two at least. I think he'll be able to shoot eventually. Will he be able to shoot well eventually? I don't know. But, like, could he be, like, mid-30s in a couple of years? Probably.
I'm such a sucker for those stories. I mean, I know you're saying Koa is not this, but the stories of guys who picked up basketball, like, 4 years ago and now they're really good. Like Yaxel's entire story. Yaxel's going to be way out of range for the Suns. He's going to go in the lottery. But, like, that's why he's so fun as a prospect, right? Because it's like, this guy didn't play basketball until he was 18. And now he makes defensive plays and passes and shoots and kind of does everything. And, like, that's really cool.
I refuse to hear any reporting about how, first of all, remember, like, we were inundated with, like, the whole league talking about how screwed they are with the Thunder and, like, the Clippers pick and all that kind of stuff. And then they just lose in the Western Conference Finals. But I'll be even more sick of hearing that kind of stuff if these morons let them draft Yaxel at 12. Like, I just do not let them draft him. Like, if they get Merez Johnson, who I really like too for the Suns, but he's not going to be there. The Merez would be pretty great for them. Mara at 12 would be insane. If they get Mara or Lendeborg at 12, then the league has no one to blame but themselves because both those guys would be incredible for them.
Okay, so the Suns draft day, let's say the first round, we see a bunch of moves, a bunch of trades. Now they get a pick between like 29 and 33. Who do you think they're picking? Just make a snap decision on who you think the guy they're targeting to move up in the draft would be in that scenario, Kellan.
And everyone, like, I'm getting Pete's off the board, Vasar's off the board.
I don't know. You could factor in who you think might be falling.
Can Vasar be my answer? I feel like Vasar at 29 would.
You really
would
think
really
that?
good.
That's a center, though.
Yeah, it would be their fourth center unless Mark is for sure gone.
Right.
Maybe they have clarity that we don't. I would say Caravan or Jefferson. Like, your instincts on Caravan were there. Like his type of, like, Gregory's type of, like, his college experience. Like,
just
that's
hear
exactly
him saying, "That's a winner. That's the kind of guy we want." I could just hear him doing that, you know?
Yeah, I would say Jefferson or Caravan, because it's just a big, or Miller. Like, those are the three. I know you want one. If you want one, it's Miller, just because they traded up for Rasheer, and he's another Rasheer.
Yeah, it's interesting because we really only have one draft. Like I do feel like towards the end of James Jones, we had a pretty good idea of the guys he was looking at. We don't really know with Gregory yet.
It's just occurring to me now the Suns have such depth in their roster that legitimately any guy, like let's say they make that trade and they take a guy at 29th, any position, I already know. So can we just clamp down on it now? People are not allowed to complain no matter what guy they take. Any position, it's going to be like, but we already have those. We already have guards. We already have wings.
That's true.
How many minutes is Rasheer going to play? We already have bigs. I just think people are. I know some people that will be their immediate reaction.
That's true.
To
we have guards who play wing.
Is what we
and we have to remind.
Yeah,
we have to remind ourselves that whoever this guy is going to be 12th in the depth chart.
Yeah.
Unless they take a power forward, and every time I've said power forward on this podcast, I've done air quotes of power forward.
Right. We don't know what that means.
They're talking about a 6'8" to 6'11" guy with some strength who can rebound. Like, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, Josh Jefferson for sure.
Joshua,
would fit that
excuse
mold.
you.
Joshua Jefferson.
I love that. Yeah.
Edge of four, is Edge of four more of a power forward or a center in your mind?
I don't know, and that's why I'm not talking about it.
Okay.
It was just he was such a different version at St. John's of what he's going to be in the league. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does.
Like Morez Johnson out of Michigan, for the people that watched him, you have this theoretical idea of him being like this super switchable defender when he transferred from Illinois to get there, and then he got there and he was super switchy, twitchable defender everywhere. Like the guy who's going to be in the league.
Do you like Alan Graves?
So I have him. He's the first name that comes up in my draft stuff. Like if you go through and read all of this prior to Tuesday or Wednesday, he's the first name you'll see. The reason why I grabbed him is because he's a possession winner, that he is the best position winner in the class. Now, what you could do, Sam, is you could look at the fact that he's a third leading scorer on St. Mary's and be like, well, like, I don't know how much.
Well, this is why I wanted to give. So the context for Mike, Alan Graves is this guy who's also mocked around this general range that we're talking about and is power forward sized, but was a literal bench player at Santa Clara. Like, that's fucking crazy that we're talking about drafting him 30th, but it's because, like, his analytics are so amazing. He's a Moneyball player, right? Which is, I don't know. He's kind of evidence of the nerds taking over.
No, 100%. There are models that, like, people are citing models from teams that have him as a top 5 guy. Like, that's how insane
that's so stupid.
Which is crazy because, like,
I'll just read.
Yeah, go ahead.
Per 40 minutes, Mike, his stats are 21 points, 11.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3.5 steals, 1.7 blocks. He shot 41% from 3. He gets to the free throw line. Like, analytically, all the boxes are checked, but he was a bench player at a not very good school who played 22 minutes a game. So it is like a true case of how much can you really project there on stats.
Yeah, so Mike, what I did with the numbers is I just looked at his block and steal rate. And that's it, just block and steal rate. And then I did the thing where I go to StatHead and I say NBA draft pick, first round pick, and just see like who else did it. In the last 23 years, Tari Eason, Matisse Thybulle, and you remember Chris Singleton out of Florida State? I loved Chris Singleton out of Florida State. Those are the 3 names. That's it. And then if I go to his offensive margins, which I'm going to count as his offensive rebounding rate and his turnover rate, which was also super duper low. So again, super high offensive rebounding rate, super low defensive rate.
A plus in the
turnover
possession
rate.
battle, basically, yeah.
Exactly. And I looked at first-round picks since 2003, Donovan Clingan, and that's it. And he's a 7'2" center. So his numbers in both of those elements were so incredibly unique that I think the Suns will flag him. Now, the thing is, this type
I
of guy
mean, just
here,
having a guy who made threes and is such a possession battle winner, like, he would need to be near the top of their board, I would think.
Yeah, I think the thing is, you hear about that type of guy and you're like, oh, so this guy was just like, he's one of the best 5 athletes in the draft, and he was for some reason at a mid-major and he just ate everyone alive. That's not the case at all. He's just incredibly smart and kind of reminds me of Cam a little bit, just with how smart he is on the floor and how he moves around the floor. Cam's a bad comp for like every other part of his game because Cam was like a true movement, awesome, just A+ shooting prospect, and Graves is like a C+, B-. I think that's the point Vecini makes, who's a guy who has him more in the late first round as opposed to like the mid-teens, is that he's not as good of a shooting prospect as he needs to be because shooting is primarily is what he's going to be doing. And then like switchability defensively, like how switchable he is, we don't really know. Again, vertical explosiveness not really there. But if you watch, he's a classic like NBA nerd like dream. Just when you watch him, because it's like you like I included this video. I remember when Collin played after game 2. And he was like 3 of 9 for 9 points or whatever. And I included a clip of like a minute and 10 of like just really smart Collin Gillespie plays, hustle plays and things like that. And people were replying and being like, I don't see anything on this. Like, he was bad in this game. What are you talking about? Like, Graves does all those types of things when you watch him all the time. And he would be perfect for the Suns just because if you think about like pairing someone with Rasheer Fleming to play with, like everything that Graves does well, Fleming doesn't really yet. And everything that Fleming really does well, Graves struggles with right now. So like they could really mesh with each other in a really unique way.
If they could just both shoot.
I took the line out, but I'll say it on the pod since we're 78 minutes in. If I was to bet on like the guy that they would trade their 2033 unprotected first round pick to go get that wouldn't go in the top 10, so like not Yaxel, like none of the Michigan guys, because the Michigan guys make a lot of sense, not because of the Michigan State meme, because those 3 guys fit for any team. Graves would be my pick. If there was someone where they made an aggressive move to move up into the mid-first round or whatever, he would be the guy that they would do it for, just because, again, like possession winner, possession gainer.
I love that. That's a good guy to keep an eye on just in case something crazy like that does end up happening. We are, by the way, the draft is 2 days. It's Tuesday and Wednesday, 5 p.m. Phoenix time. We're going live on our Discord for both the first round and the second round. Kellan, if you got time and you want to join, feel free, of course. But we'll be there. Even if the Suns aren't in the first round, we're going to be there talking about the guys that we know very little about. But we have fun every year that we've done this. So
we'll be unveiling our personal big boards of all NBA podcasters. And I don't want to make any promises, but you are in my top 14.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Can I share my draft hot take before we go?
Of course.
Go ahead.
And I want to know quickly, before we go too, about what you think about the top 4. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's my hot take. I think
perfect.
Peterson's in his own tier. I think he's number 1.
Oh,
yeah.
That is a hot take.
Are you not worried about his creatine addiction?
That's all I have to be worried about. Everything else is awesome. Like he's going
to have so much money for creatine now.
I know. I watched a lot of him. I watched a lot of Kansas, which was just
Are you one of the guys that watched
team.
his high school? You watched his high school, didn't you?
I haven't even watched the high school stuff. I've just seen the college stuff. Dog shit team, played with this like ball dominant guard who didn't pass, and like a bunch of like just bad scoring options who couldn't pass and shoot, and played with bigs who like he couldn't run 2-man game with. It was just a mess of a fit. He had the injury stuff, the creatine stuff, all that kind of stuff, but defensively, I think is like where people don't start with him for some reason, and it's not his best skill or anything, but I think he has a chance to be a great defender. He was really disruptive when he was going after it at Kansas, and again, this is the whole ego motor, how much does he care, taking himself out of games, the cramps and all that kind of stuff. I'm willing to put that to the side for now and say that the risk of that being a real thing is worth everything that he does, because again, defensively I think he's going to be great. I think he has a chance to be one of the 6 to 8 best shooters in the draft. The comp that I loved that Gavoni made on Lowe's pod was taller Damian Lillard. I love that comp for him. It makes a lot of sense for what he does. I think he's a complete 3-level scorer right now, and he's just like a really great winning player, and so much of this talk around his cramping and all this stuff that happened over the course of the year kind of put to the side of like a bad teammate narrative, when actually when he plays and when he's impacting the game, it's all the glue guy stuff that we talk about, but you're getting it with like a superstar 2-guard. So if I was Washington, I would hesitate to take him. I'd be terrified to take him, to be clear, but I think it's worth the risk, because like DeBonta, Boozer, and Wilson all have clear negatives, Peterson's clear negative, in my opinion, his only clear negative is just everything that kind of happened off the floor. Just so you hear it from someone who more knows what they're talking about than I do, for this type of like discussion. For Peterson's weaknesses, Vicini, who has him number 3, by the way, he has Boozer and DeBonta ahead of him. He said Peterson is not quite the athlete that some score first on-ball guards are. Again, I think that's partially due to the injury. He said that showed itself this season at Kansas in one respect, but Peterson did not put an immense amount of pressure on the rim. Said his shot selection was sometimes concerning. Noted that the three-point results were not as good as they should be from like a statistical perspective. Didn't like the low assist numbers. He thought that he got too aggressive on defense and was too foul heavy as well. And then he mentioned like the injuries and the cramping and all that kind of stuff. So I make it sound like he's this perfect prospect, but Sam nails the weaknesses there really well. But a lot of those I'm just willing to bet on situation and just like the tools. He is very... Have you guys seen highlights?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It's extremely like Devin Booker, like looks effortless when he's doing
exactly what I
right?
said when I first looked into them.
And I love those guys in the draft. The guys who look so smooth and like just like I loved Markelle Fultz because it looked like he was gliding whenever he had the ball. I love those guys. So it's very my type, to be clear. But I think he's the best guy in the draft, and it would be dumb to take anyone else number 1.
That's great. That's a fascinating hot take. A good place to end it here. If you'd like to join us live, feel free to join our Patreon, patreon.com/thetimeline. We'll send you a link to our Discord, which we will be going live. But before you do any of that, go to arizonasports.com. Kellan's written a lot about the draft on arizonasports.com, and read all of that there. Listen to the Empire of the Suns podcast. Kellan, I imagine you got a lot more stuff coming up. What do you got?
Yeah, so a story yesterday on Gillespie, story today on Goodwin, and just kind of the Goodwin piece is more so for the off-season preview and like what's next, the tax money, all that stuff that has the more updated numbers in there. For the people who have been asking, Kevin and I will be potting tomorrow. That'll be recapping what's happened so far and then talking as well about the draft, obviously. And then we're going to do something after the draft. I don't know when, whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll see based on other things that they do. And then obviously written stories as they come. Like we think this could be boring, and it might just be Mark Williams getting re-signed, and maybe there's
I was going to say we didn't even talk about Mark Williams really on this pod, but it's going to be a story for the next couple weeks at least. So for sure,
I don't think this is going to happen fast. I had to guess. Yeah.
And I think the longer that it takes, the more likely it is that he's back. Like if we don't get news on him by the July 10th. I'm just going to assume that he's back.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair because that means the market for him has dried up to a point the Suns could afford him.
Yeah, if you don't want to see him on the Suns next year, you're rooting for Walker Kessler and Jalen Duren to re-sign. And the teams that were going after him, like the Lakers or whatever, I know that's ironic because of the failed physical and everything, but teams that are going after centers, if they come up dry on those two guys, then they'll want to go after Mark.
That's right. All right, great stuff. Make sure to check out everything from Kellan. Thank you so much for joining us, Kellan.
Of course, man. No problem.
We'll be back soon.